The whole country is shocked by the rape gang scandal. Instead of those victims being protected and the perpetrators prosecuted, those girls were systematically failed. Over years or decades, thousands and maybe tens of thousands of vulnerable young girls were systematically raped.
Labour MPs squirm as one of their own turns against them. Yvette Cooper, a veteran Labour politician, stands before Parliament, her face set with grim determination. The air crackles with tension as she prepares to expose decades of cover-ups and failures. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. What could be so shocking that it would make Cooper risk her political career? As she begins to speak, the true scale of the rape gang scandal unfolds.
We need to make sure that young people, that children are being protected. These are vile crimes against children. Paedophile gangs operating online. We have seen abuse in communities and institutions and in family homes. Young girls, we have seen teenagers, and we have seen young boys who have been exploited in the most cruel and horrendous way.
Leaving her colleagues pale-faced and fidgeting. This is not just another political spat, it's a moment that could reshape British politics forever. As Yvette Cooper takes her place at the dispatch box, the atmosphere in the House of Commons becomes electric. Her colleagues shift uneasily in their seats, aware that what's about to unfold could shatter the carefully constructed narrative they've maintained for years. Cooper's face is set in stone, her eyes blazing with a determination that sends shivers down the spines of those who've long buried the truth. The rape gang scandal isn't new. It's a festering wound that's been allowed to infect British society for decades. Cooper doesn't mince words as she lays out the horrifying timeline. From the early 1980s to the present day, thousands of young girls have fallen victim to organized grooming gangs. The sheer scale of the abuse is staggering. And as Cooper recites the numbers, you can see the color drain from the faces of her fellow MPs. But it's not just the longevity of the scandal that's shocking. It's the stark contrast between the suffering of the victims and the willful inaction of those in power. Cooper's voice rises in controlled anger as she describes how young girls were dismissed as prostitutes or child prostitutes by the very authorities meant to protect them. The collective guilt in the room is palpable. As Cooper speaks, the discomfort of her Labour colleagues becomes increasingly visible. Some fidget nervously, unable to meet her gaze. Others stare at the floor, as if hoping it might open up and swallow them whole. It's a telling display of body language that speaks volumes about their complicity in this long-standing cover-up. But Cooper isn't finished. She methodically outlines the systemic failures that allowed this abuse to continue unchecked. The police, local councils, and yes, even her own party, all come under fire. No one is spared from her scathing indictment. The tension in the room ratchets up with each damning revelation. Just when it seems the situation can't get any more damning, Cooper drops her first bombshell. She reveals new evidence that has come to light. Evidence that threatens to blow the lid off decades of silence and denial. The room holds its breath, waiting for the hammer to fall, and fall it does. Cooper unveils the testimony of Simon Danczuk, a former Labour MP who claims he was pressured into silence by senior party officials. The revelation sends shockwaves through the chamber. Danczuk's account of being told to keep his mouth shut about child abuse is a damning indictment of the party's priorities. Danczuk's bombshell testimony hangs in the air, but Yvette Cooper isn't done. Her voice takes on a steely edge as she shifts from exposing the scandal to demanding action. The atmosphere in the Commons crackles with tension as Cooper introduces her most explosive proposal yet: a full national public inquiry. Why is this such a big deal? Unlike previous investigations, a statutory public inquiry has teeth. It can compel witnesses to testify and force the release of evidence that might otherwise stay buried. Cooper's colleagues know this, and you can see the panic starting to set in. Some MPs look like they're trying to melt into their seats. Cooper doesn't pull any punches as she lays out the potential consequences of continued inaction. The rot goes deep, she argues, and without a thorough examination, it will only spread further. She paints a grim picture of eroding public trust and a justice system that fails the most vulnerable. It's clear that she's not just talking about abstract concepts. There are real victims whose lives have been shattered by this systemic failure. But Cooper's not done. She methodically dissects the shortcomings of previous inquiries, including the limited scope of the Exarch investigation. It's like watching a skilled surgeon expose every flaw in a botched operation. With each point, the atmosphere in the Commons grows more charged. You can almost feel the collective gulp from her Labour colleagues as they realise where this is heading. As Cooper builds her case for a full statutory public inquiry, the tension in the room becomes almost unbearable. She's not just challenging the opposition, she's taking aim at her own party leadership. It's a risky move, but Cooper seems past the point of caring about political consequences. Her focus is laser-sharp on getting justice for the victims. Then comes the moment everyone's been dreading. Cooper drops her final bombshell. We now have new evidence of further that is of interest to the public. This all needs to be looked into. The implications are clear. There's more dirt yet to be uncovered, and a public inquiry is the only way to do it properly. But Cooper's not content with just making a speech. She's forcing her colleagues to take a stand. In a move that sends shockwaves through the chamber, she announces her intention to table an amendment to the Children's Wellbeing Bill. This amendment would force a vote on the public inquiry, putting every MP on record. It's a masterful political maneuver that leaves her colleagues squirming. As Cooper's final words echo through the chamber, a deafening silence falls. The gravity of her accusations hangs heavy in the air, suffocating any attempt at rebuttal. The camera pans across the room, revealing a stark divide among the MPs. Some lean forward, eyes blazing with newfound determination, ready to take up the mantle of justice. Others slump in their seats, the weight of their complicity visibly crushing them. The split is palpable, a physical manifestation of the moral crossroads facing British politics. Will this be the moment that finally breaks the dam of silence and cover-ups? Or will the machinery of political self-preservation grind into action once more, sweeping the victims' cries under the rug of expediency? As the session draws to a close, one question lingers, unspoken yet deafening. Will justice finally prevail, or will the victims of these heinous crimes be sacrificed once again on the altar of political convenience? The answer, it seems, lies in the hands of those very MPs who now squirm under the spotlight of scrutiny.